So I mentioned that I was gonna send you an internet archive version of this big old beautiful history book, but I guess there's some things you can get for free and other things you have to sign up for. So I messed around with it and tried to send it to you for free, but then it kept saying you had to sign up and then check out the book. So I'm just instead gonna read you a few little things that I found, which I hope are interesting. Bridget said we haven't talked about current events in a while, but there's not really, I don't know what to talk about, except that China just got mad at the United States.
Wait, when did this happen?
Last night.
Oh, I didn't.
They said they're gonna put a 25% tax on something because we're threatening tariffs. It's a bad idea.
And they don't dare to do that.
I don't think they dare to do that.
Yeah.
NATO. I don't know. Unless anyone has anything they want to talk about, I can't think of what to talk about.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. He's like, yeah, I got something.
Yes. North and South Korea.
Oh yeah, what's going on with North and South Korea?
I don't know. I think I heard 3 or 2 days ago, South Korea that put lots of soldiers, helicopters, tanks.
Yeah.
On across the border.
Yeah. See what's happening?
No.
When is inauguration?
I don't
January 21st or something?
I don't know. They said they're going to fight, or I don't know.
Yeah. Okay, let's see. First of all, I'm gonna back up just a little bit so you can kick back and listen. It's called An Outline History of the Church by Centuries, from St. Peter to Pius XII, by Joseph McSorley of the Paulist Fathers, formerly a professor of dogmatic theology in the College of St. Thomas Aquinas, Catholic University of America, back when Catholic University was actually Catholic. It was published in 1948. And I think it's interesting when people write these kinds of books to listen to what they say about history. And this is what John Peterson, Bishop of Manchester, wrote in 1942 when this book appeared. This must be a second edition because it was published in 1948. Oh, it's a 7th edition, excuse me. The appearance during an epochal world convulsion of a modernized manual of church history is indeed timely. 1948, so we're after World War II, and that's what he means by a convulsion. The world has just been torn apart. Because World War II was what years?
1945.
1930.
No, 1940 something.
We entered in 41. It started in 39 and ended in 45. Good, Alice. School curricula are in revision with accent upon the practical, as if this could make the world wiser. In such adjustments, the value of the study of history could be underestimated. No intellectual discipline, however, is more interesting, instructive, or profitable. It offers the intensely human interest of biography in the passing across its stage of those who shaped its world's destinies for good or ill. It teaches lessons of lasting worth taught by that best of teachers, experience. It is profitable, for history is at once factual and prophetic, a truth summed up in the saying, history repeats itself. No present moment can disdain its debt to the past. Often has the work of masters of historical science been timely, not only in narrating past events and verifying their causes and effects, but even in forecasting the future, or at least in mapping its possible trends. Such was the work of Eusebius, the father of church history, who in the 4th century, at a transitional time when the old world order was yielding to the new, wrote abundantly of the past and preserved for the guidance of posterity priceless treasures and lessons of Christian antiquity. Such too was the work of Cardinal Baronius, who during the religious upheavals of the 16th century called upon the past to vindicate the challenged papal claims and so confounded the uncritical and partisan centurionators of Magdeburg. Post-Reformation apologetics was gratefully his debtor. Father McSorley, who wrote this book, would disavow the coupling of his repute with that of those immortals, but no more needs indeed is intended than to note the fact that after a decade of devoted research, he offers the fruits of his labors to students and readers in the midst of another critical world upheaval, as momentous as the revolutionary passing of the scepter of Rome from imperial to sacerdotal hands, or the equally revolutionary attempt to wrest it from them by the founders of new faiths. Now here's the author who says this about his book. This book has been written because years of experience with students, ecclesiastical and lay, have taught the author the extent to which an understanding of the church doctrines is conditioned by a knowledge of her history. What does that mean? A knowledge of her church doctrines are conditioned by a knowledge of her history. What does that mean? Is it like tradition? It does have something. You can't really understand what the church is teaching and why unless you understand her history. Now, we totally get that because we went to the Council of Nicaea and we know why it was convened. It would not have been convened except for the errors of Arianism, right? But then out of that, we get all kinds of explanation of what the church believes and what therefore we are to believe. So the history of the church is the foundation upon which you can understand her doctrine and therefore apply it more to yourself. Does that make sense? The necessary knowledge will be attained elsewhere by those who have already completed their introductory studies and by those who are preparing to become specialists. But the present volume, it is hoped, will prove helpful to the general reader and to the student who has not yet learned to find his way about in a discouragingly vast field. The author has undertaken no independent research. He has simply gathered pertinent data from widely scattered sources and arranged them within the compass of a single volume in the form that promises to aid both the imagination and the memory. He sets up in outline the historical background against which the activity of the church must be seen if we are to understand her mission and her achievement. Despite his own limitations, he believes that the first stage of many students' progress will, by the use of this book, be rendered less laborious than it would be otherwise. From this point on, the student will be conduced by more learning guides than through scholarly works. Recognizing the likelihood that errors will necessarily occur in pages so crowded with specific events and with dates as the following, the author asks general pardon for all mistakes and begs the favor of prompt correction. The question of divisions will always plague the writer of a text on history, yet some breaking up of the long and complicated story is inevitable. To help the student visualize the time relationship of contemporaneous events, the following chapters display their contents within a framework of centuries. But as institutions and movements must be followed through successive stages of development, this book employs also the topical method, so that a particular subject, for example, papacy or marriage or the church-state conflict may be traced through the whole period of history. So he's got all these very interesting charts and tables that help make, at least it made sense to me. And there's also maps. So I'm going to show you the first map. This is with the Roman Empire and Constantine. It sort of helps when you think about a modern day map and then you look at this with the colors.
Yeah.
I think it helps.
Yeah.
They help you.
Mm-hmm.
I think this helps. If I can get it to focus.
Okay.
There we go. The colors kind of help if you can read the countries. This is the first map for, no, you can't see it.
No, they can only see the color.
You can't read the countries.
Can you read? Say blue is.
The blue,
I can see Italy.
yeah, blue is Rome. And,
Blue is Rome.
And the green is Constantine.
Green is Constantinople.
And Red is Alexandria.
Red is Alexandria.
What's the purple one? Purple is Jerusalem.
Oh, purple is Jerusalem.
And
And what about yellow?
yellow is
Antioch.
yeah,
Antioch, you can see that.
Yeah.
So Greece and Rome, right? That's where we started. Now hold on, there's other. Okay, here's a better one where we are now with the barbarian kingdoms. Hold on, let's see if it'll focus. Hang on. That better?
You can't really see in maybe.
That's
Yeah,
better.
that's better.
Good job, Liz.
That's good.
Okay, here's the barbarian kingdoms. Now imagine what we just learned about St. Boniface and where he was. Okay, this is 500. So let's go forward. There's some really good pictures in here too. I wish we were using this book. We're good enough for next time. Okay,
Do you have enough copies?
1100, that's not. No, I have one copy. I can't even remember where I got it. So the next thing I'm gonna do with this book, since I can't really show it to you, I'm gonna copy things like this chart. Because it helps you place in history the different councils and popes that we're learning about.
Will we be tested on it?
Tested on it? No. It's just to help make it. I don't know. I teach only from my point of view because it's the only point I've got. And I hated history when I was your age. I hated it because I didn't get it and nobody spent the time to explain it to me in a way that I could connect everything. Now I love history. But when I was your age, I hated it. Because it was just dates and places and names I had to memorize, and it didn't fit together. So I'm trying to remedy that for you so you don't hate history. How am I doing?
Good. Excellent.
They're all like, yeah, whatever. Okay. So I wish Thomas were here because we're moving on to the Mohammedans, and he had some interesting questions and insights on that. Chapter 4, page 231. Everyone with me?
Yes.
I do think we're gonna have to have a test sooner rather than later. It's gonna be too much information. I think we'll do the next 2 chapters. So chapter 5 is Mohammedanism, and then the next is the beginnings of the temporal sovereignty of the popes. This is like the Holy Roman Empire stuff. And then we get to Charlemagne, but I'm going to test you before Charlemagne because we already have St. Benedict, St. Patrick, St. Gregory the Great, St. Augustine of Canterbury, St. Columba, St. Columban, and St. Boniface. And now we're going to have Muhammad. So that's a lot of people to remember details about. So we'll brief for, we'll have a test on Monday, December 16th. That way, the whole rest of that week before Christmas break, we can take it easy. Also, I wanted to know the weather, Coco, what's happening in Front Royal, because it got really nasty here really fast.
It's really windy.
It's really windy, and I had to bring the trash cans into the garage because they were flying into Katie's car.
Oh. And what about precipitation?
When I was out at like 7 o'clock, it was snowing, and then it started to rain a little bit, and now it's not.
I think there's a warm front coming through because I think it's supposed to be 55 today.
No, next Tuesday will be hot.
Next Tuesday will be like 62 or something. Maybe as of now, right?
I don't know. I measured him in Celsius.
Oh. Alice, do you have to drive this morning, or are you already where you need to be?
I drove this morning. It was really windy.
Windy? Okay. But now you're where you need to be, so you don't have to go anywhere else?
Well, I'm driving again
What
to
time?
West Virginia, but
To West Virginia?
Huh?
Will you please be careful?
yep. I always say my travel prayers, don't worry.
Yeah, this kind of weather makes people drive like
Oh,
idiots.
yeah. At least I'm not driving the van there, though.
Oh, good. Do you have a new car?
No, but I get to drive their car. I'm not driving my van. I had to
Gotcha.
drive down the highway this morning, and that was scary.
Scary. Yeah, it's scary when it's windy. Okay, Mohammedism in the church. While the church was planting the cross in the countries of the Northwest and handing on the culture of the ancient world to the new nations, vast hordes of fanatic warriors were marching out of the Arabian desert to lay waste the cities and lands which had so long been the centers of Christian civilization. Islam was the new religion which had set the Arab tribes in motion, and Muhammad was its prophet and lawgiver. I am going to find a map right now, in one book or the other, because this gets really confusing. So what lands have just been fixed up for Christianity to continue? Which lands? Where were we just?
England, France, and Germany.
Okay, England, France,
And Austria as well.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. And so, and also we have Ireland, Scotland, so the part of the continent and the Isles. All right, now, when you're thinking about Arabia, where do you point on the map?
Probably near to the Middle East. Right.
Well, where's the desert? Hold on, trying to find. Okay, here's Christendom in peril. Today is the feast of Saint Sabas, and here is the monastery he built. Yeah.
Oh wow, it's incredible.
In what, 7th century? Look at that. You see that?
Yeah.
You see that? Look at that. That's hewn right into the side of a rock mountain. Okay, I'm trying to find you a map. Division and confusion, the 800s.
How can they manage to move all this material?
I don't know. It doesn't make sense.
They don't have like the advanced, mechanical stuff to help them, right? Like carry stuff.
Okay. Division and confusion. Okay, with 800 we get Charlemagne, and here's his kingdom, which is basically what we were just talking about with St. Boniface, yes? Who cares? Not even looking. Should learn how to use the board and put maps up on the board, instead of.
We can look up one and share the screen.
They don't care. They're not even paying attention.
Yeah.
Muhammad's life. Muhammad was born at Mecca in Western Arabia about the year 570. Mecca was not only the most important city of Arabia, it also enclosed within its walls the national sanctuary, the far-famed Kaaba, the small and nearly cubical stone building which contained the, quote, black stone, fabled to have come down from paradise whiter than milk, but to have changed to black by the sins of the children of Adam who have touched it. Originally dedicated to the one supreme being, the Kaaba had in time become a veritable pagan pantheon, harboring no less than 360 idols of all shapes and forms. From every part of the Arabian Peninsula, pilgrims came year after year in vast numbers to the Kaaba. The inhabitants of Mecca, and above all, the clan of the Quraysh, to whom the guardianship of the Kaaba was entrusted, profited mightily by these pilgrimages and the great fairs which were held in connection with them. Okay, did anyone know that this is how Islam began? With the worshiping of an idol that caused people to pilgrimage and the people in Mecca to gain great profit from all the visitors.
So retarded.
Let's look at where Saudi Arabia is. Saudi Arabia.
I think it's near Italy. No.
Belarus, Syria, Iraq, Iran. It's here somewhere. Saudi Arabia down here. To the right of Jerusalem.
It's just like really close to the Middle East, right?
Right, it's Alexandria, there's Cairo,
Yeah. And you
there's Turkey, like former Constantinople, it's all, but it's just to the right of Jerusalem. Saudi Arabia is just to the right of Jerusalem. So this is in the east, yeah?
Yeah.
And after Constantine and his moving of his home base to Constantinople, the east became a big deal. Rivaling Rome, right? Important. And now we have, it says, hordes of fanatic warriors were marching out of the Arabian desert to lay waste the cities and lands which had so long been centers of Christian civilization. And it starts with the worship of this stone. Muhammad himself belonged to the Quraysh, but his family was poor. Left an orphan when still a child, he would no doubt have lived and died in poverty if he had not attracted the attention of a rich elderly widow, Khadijah, who first employed him to trade for her and subsequently married him. The penniless orphan was now a man of wealth and social standing and could devote his time to other matters than driving camels and herding sheep. Paganism was rapidly declining in Arabia. There were strong colonies of Jews and Christians, the latter mostly heretics, scattered throughout the land. Even in Central Arabia, the stronghold of idolatry, there was at least one Christian community. The doctrines of Judaism and Christianity were thus known to the Arabs and naturally made a deep impression on the finer minds among them. Towards the end of the 6th century, some men from Mecca, Medina, and Taif, in search of a pure religion than the dominant polytheism, took over from Jews and Christians the doctrines and practices that suited them and built up from them what they termed the pure religion of their great ancestors, Abraham and Ishmael. These were the Hanifs. Okay, this sounds, talk about history repeating itself, this sounds exactly like Mormonism. Exactly like Mormonism. Joseph Smith, was a Freemason, who took some ideas from Christianity, still used the Bible, but created this whole other story upon which he based his religion. And it was a tablet, a golden tablet that supposedly he found and dug up and translated.
It's kind of like what China and North Korea is doing, right?
Yep. They were strict monotheists, believed in a future life with its eternal punishments and rewards, abstained from wine, and practiced other austerities. Muhammad's uncle, Waraka, joined the new movement, and through him, Muhammad himself came under its influence. Now, you can get how this would play to regular human nature, right? The idea of monotheism, the idea of the Stoics, right? The ancient Greeks who were like, I'm going to focus on the finer things. I'm not going to become a beast with my body by eating and drinking too much. I'm going to, right? I mean, the monks, it's a thing with human nature. From now on, Muhammad spent much time in quiet and contemplation in the hill caves near Mecca. During one of these periods of solitary contemplation, he was then about 40 years of age, he received, he tells us, his prophetic mission. Sounds exactly like Joseph Smith, word for word. He had been commissioned by God, he said, through the archangel Gabriel, to destroy idolatry and to restore the true worship of God. His wife, Khadijah, was his first convert. Soon, however, others gathered around him, and when the wealthy and influential Abu Bakr declared his belief in his revelations, he began to make open propaganda for his new religion. He called it Islam, that is, resignation to the will of God, and his followers, Muslims, those who have surrendered themselves to God. What could be wrong with all that? The ruling aristocracy, fearing for their wealth and their influence if idol worship was wiped out, refused to listen to Muhammad's preaching and began a bitter persecution of his adherents. Muslim slaves were tortured by their masters and the freemen were disowned by their clans. This led to the first hijra, or migration, to Abyssinia in 615. Guess what? Joseph Smith started out in the hills of New York, and when he was persecuted for his beliefs, he headed for Utah. Some years later, Muhammad himself resolved to emigrate. An attempt to gain a footing in the neighboring city of Tif failed. In Medina, conditions were more favorable. The Jews who lived in great numbers in that city had told the inhabitants of a Messiah, an ambassador whom God had promised to send into the world. And then pilgrims from Mecca brought the news that a prophet had arisen in their midst, an Arab like themselves, to whom God had made revelations in their own tongue. Okay, so we know that the Jews did not believe that Jesus Christ was the Messiah. So they're still waiting for a prophet from God. So they're a teeny bit interested in this guy, right? Because they don't believe in the Christianity stuff. Was not this man the long-expected Messiah? Islam gained ground rapidly in Medina, and an invitation was extended to Muhammad to take up his abode there. Many Muslims left Mecca immediately for Medina. Muhammad himself on July 6, 622. His departure from Mecca is known as the second Hijra. The Mohammedan calendar is reckoned from the day of his arrival in Medina. In Medina, Muhammad perfected his religious system. Before long, by fair means and foul, he had made himself complete master of the city and the surrounding country. In the war against Mecca and the Quraysh, which dragged on for several years, neither side gained a decisive advantage. After an unsuccessful attack on Medina in 627, the Meccans gave up further resistance as useless and admitted Muhammad and his army into their city. They did not suffer in wealth and prestige by their submission, for Muhammad made their city the holy city of Islam and the Kaaba its sacred shrine. Central and southern Arabia followed the example of Mecca. The few tribes that resisted were quickly subdued by the sword. In the midst of warlike plans for the conquest of Persia and Syria, Muhammad died at Medina, June 8, 632. That's what we have so far. How this turns into 800 years of occupying Catholic Spain is yet to be determined.
From Saudi Arabia all the way to Spain.
Yes, but they went up and around.
And also,
Or down. Up and around or down and around?
I don't know. I think it's down.
Okay, I'm not assigning any homework for the weekend except to please continue to read 10 pages of the Blessed Sacrament book. And we'll pick this up next week on Monday. Make sure you are working on your Hail and Blesseds. And what else religiously? It's a big feast day coming up. Traditionally, we fast before we feast, so December 7th should be a day of fasting and partial abstinence for those of you who like to keep the traditional ways. And December 8th is the Immaculate Conception. Everyone knows what the Immaculate Conception is, right? Sometimes people get it confused with the conception of our Lord, but that's not what it's about. Okay, take 2 minutes and we'll pick up the dawn.